Scanning for audio.
Welcome to a Tin Dog podcast. As I said last time, I've been to Whoverville 5 and had a superb time. One of the people that we got to interview was Lisa Bowerman, famous from her work on Big Finish. Now, because of the time constraints, I've split this interview into two. The first part will be at the beginning of the week, and the second part at the end of the week. Basically what happened was myself, Luke, and James were allocated the interview slot, and Lisa was so interesting that we didn't get to ask her anything about Doctor Who for the first half. The first half of the interview covers her career and how she got where she is today. The second half was recorded later on that day when we managed to buttonhole her and say, we can't let you go without talking about Big Finish and Doctor Who. So now over to me in the past.
Hello. Hello.
This is Michael.
Hello, Michael. Nice to meet you.
I'm James.
Hello, James. How do you do? Hello.
This is Luke.
Hello, Luke.
We met at Big Finish Day a couple of years ago.
Oh, right. Hello.
Hello. Right, yes, and we are
we good to go?
we're rolling, so yes, that's fine.
So, Lisa, thanks ever so much for coming and having a chat with us.
More than happy.
How you doing?
I'm fine.
Fantastic. I don't know what you guys we've all kind of prepared our own little questions sort of independently.
So we've all probably tripled up.
Exactly. So
Repeat away.
exactly. So, but the thing I kind of wanted to kick off with is, I'm right in saying that you trained at the Bristol Old Vic, a very iconic organisation.
It certainly is.
Talk to us about that and talk to us how you got into acting from that.
Well, it's slightly backwards. One of my brothers is also an actor. He's 10 years older than me. But regardless of whether my brother was an actor, I got the bug because I was a member of the youth theatre, was the old Thornback Theatre in Leatherhead, which was at that point a very successful repertory theatre. And they used to use the youth theatre a lot in all the professional productions. They also used to write original dramas that were published subsequently by Samuel French, who were the script publishers rather, and we used to go out on tours. So at the age of kind of 15 onwards, I was within a professional theatre environment.
Wow.
And I spear carried in various productions, and I did shows in the studio theatre. I did front of house, I painted backstage, I helped out with the auditions, including one where I remember I used to take all the names down, one with some unknown called Miranda Richardson turned up, I think, at that point. Wow. So, you met a lot of people. And then my brother had been at the Bristol Vic Theatre School, and when it came to university time and I had to pluck up courage and tell my parents that I didn't want to go to university, that I really wanted to be an actor, they were slightly horrified, but my brother said, well, look, if you're going to go, try and get, if I wanted to go to drama school, I wanted to try and get into the best ones that were available rather than just doing any old course. And I tried for Bristol the year before I had intended to go. I agreed with my parents to do a secretarial course, because that's the sensible thing. Yes, that's something to fall back on, something seriously helpful. Although, ironically, of course, now everything is computer-based, I can touch type, so that's, it did stand me in good stead eventually. But, so I tried at the Bristol the year before I wanted to go, but also drama schools in those days is a very different environment now, but they used to not take people straight out of school. Right. Because they were very fussy about people going into it because they really wanted to go into it, not just playing at the idea. And at that stage, in the old days, it was very difficult to get into drama school. There really weren't very many places. And also at Bristol, one of the other reasons it was quite challenging is there were very few girls' places. Because in those days, again, it was... Even then in the industry, there was a lot more employment for actors than there were for actresses. And I think they were literally just reflecting the ratio of employment that was in the industry by the time we left. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So anyway, I went for the audition. As it turned out, I was put on the shortlist. which made things slightly difficult because I'd already booked myself a place at Secretariat College. So I explained that to them, and they very kindly said, well, look, come back for a recall next year without having to audition again. So I thought, that's very nice. But at that point, it wasn't a guaranteed place.
Right.
And in those days as well, which has also changed because a lot of the drama school courses have now changed to degree courses, you had to apply for a grant. Those are the days that you had grants, but it was called a discretionary grant because it was it was a nice drill outside, lovely. It was a vocational course as opposed to an academic course, and you had to have a discretionary award. And in Surrey County Council, which is where I was, at the time, you had to audition for it. So I thought, well, I haven't got a guaranteed place. So then I decided to apply for all the other drama schools. And so this is an extremely long story to say how I got to Bristol. Sorry. So what happened was that I auditioned for Bristol, and I got in. At that point, the new principal was a man who'd given my brother his very first job when he was an artistic director of a theatre. That subsequently, my father said, well, that's just nepotism. And I went, it's not. There are only 4 girls' places here. It's not fair. So then I applied. I had an audition at Guildhall, and I was lucky enough to get into Guildhall as well. And I also got into Lambda and Central subsequently. So after a first couple of drama schools said yes, my father kind of went, oh, all right, then go on. But I made a decision to go to Bristol because out of all the colleges that were around at the time, it had the most practical, realistic course on offer. It was quite well known at that point for the fact that we could do everything from juggling teapots to designing sets. We did everything. We had lessons on how to do your CV, how to do tax, because it isn't just about all the technical stuff.
No.
It's about
everything behind
all the
scenes.
industry. And we had mock auditions every 3 weeks from the day we were there. So by the time we left, we had a good layer of things to use.
Second skin.
And a second skin, because you latterly they did actually get artistic directors of theatres in to come and see us and audition us, and actually I got a few jobs on the back of those, whereas a lot of people were just struggling to get the auditions once they were out. So it was an intensely practical course, and of course it still had a very good name then, so in a sense it gave you that much more advantage when you left. And another thing, of course, it was a closed shop in those days. You had to have an equity card to work. When I left college, you weren't allowed to do television or West End or number one tours. You had to do 42 weeks either cabaret or rep. That was the only choice you had. And in fact, I lost out on a job in the West End. It was the second cast of a play called Daisy Pulls It Off, which was quite well known. And I just wasn't full equity, and I couldn't. I feel I couldn't take the gig, which was a great pity. But at the same time, it sort of sorted the men out from the boys, and it acted as an apprenticeship. And now, of course, the years after it opened up, it's a free-for-all now, and it's very difficult because there was at least an acknowledgement that you had a skill to present to somebody to say, how would you like this played? I can do it any way you like, or do you think I'm bad or good? And it was considered a skill. And
you hadn't just honed your own craft.
No.
You also were aware of everybody else's.
Yes, absolutely. Because I started, my first job was with David Wood, who was very well known. He's now known as the sort of national children's playwright. It was the only number one tour that was allowed to have an equity card. The Whirligig Theatre Company, which sadly is no more. But it was a fantastic cutting my teeth because I was acting ASM, and having played some very nice parts of drama school. It's frustrating, but actually it makes you appreciate everybody else's job. And you get some kids, this is me being a bitter old lovey now, but you get some kids now, who either haven't trained. Training, I don't think you can be trained to be an actor. I think you can improve as an actor. I think you can't be taught how to be an actor. I think you have to
have a certain talent there.
I think it's the same as somebody who can paint or draw. You either have a facility for it or you don't. And I think drama school is there to hone the facility that you already have. It's not to teach somebody how to act. But you get kids now who think, well, I can walk and talk, I can act. You think,
maybe not.
Not really. And obviously, subsequently, since I've been doing all the directing for Big Finish, so you realise that actually, the thing that sorts a man out from the boys is audio. Because all you have is the character that you create, or the words you have in front of you, and your ability to storytell. And a lot of people who have got relatively good careers on television, you will be surprised when you're up close and personal to them, because you realise that a lot of people have been edited to within an inch of their careers. And you think, oh, that's been some good editing going on here. I see, I get it now. But they look right for a part, or they fit a particular type, and that has changed immensely in the last few years. But drama school, I mean, I had a very good time at Bristol. I was in a very happy year. I don't think any of us flew. I mean, a couple of years after us, when the equity thing was lifted, they all went straight into films. And of course, those of us who've been slogging away, you go into jobs and they go, oh, well, really good, but come back when you've got some more experience. And you come back with the experience and they go, oh, no, we've got somebody else out of college now. And so we were kind of, in a way, we were sort of a lost generation because, we were there building our way up. And then suddenly experience wasn't valued that much anymore, so got to be philosophical.
On the subject of other skills that you'd picked up and used, not a lot of people are aware that you take the photographs for Spotlight.
I do.
For anyone listening who doesn't know what that is, that's the artist's directory. So
that's right.
If the casting director picks it up, flicks through and goes, we need someone who looks like this, you can see the pictures. So how did you get that gig?
I did art A-level. I draw and paint and things like that. And while I was at drama school, I was aware that people were being charged vast sums of money for really bad photographs. And I thought, I could probably do that. And there's also, you've got to understand that I would say 95% of most actors hate having their photographs taken. It is a complete myth to say, because they show off. Actually, no, it isn't, because suddenly you're thinking, am I being myself? Am I being somebody else? What is it? It's a very strange area. And I kept thinking that there's got to be an easier way of doing this. So I started at drama school. I started taking photos at drama school. I got a camera for my 21st birthday. I borrowed a friend's lens, and it's been over 30 years of trial and error. And I never, once I knew technically what I was doing with a camera, I was very lucky. An old boyfriend of mine who's now ridiculously well-known television director. He taught me, all about apertures and shutter speeds and all that sort of stuff. And then I was also given a crash course in developing, because they had a darkroom at drama school. Bless you, thank you. They had a darkroom there, and I was very lucky because the principal of the college said, I'm going to commission you to take all the photographs, because we used to have this sheet of actors for the final year for the audition shows. So he said, I'm going to commission you to take some photographs. And so not only was I doing 4 different shows, the main show, the audition show, I was also in the darkroom for all the rest of the time.
Wow.
After I left drama school, I never wanted to see a darkroom again, ever.
Thank goodness.
Well, we'll get on to that. We'll get on to that later.
She's old school.
It's a long story.
Who takes your photo?
Well, that's a problem, actually, because I've been... there was a point about 5-10 years ago when I was very lucky. I was considered as one of the kind of to-go-to photographers, so that was very flattering and very nice and kept me off the streets. Then, of course, everybody thought I'd given up acting, but that's another thing. It's very difficult to be what do they call it? An all-rounder. Yes. They don't like that in this country. In America, you can just about do everything, but I have what is called a portfolio career. That's 3 different things.
It's supposed to be the mono threat.
Oh, is that? That's the mono threat? No, a quadruple threat when you're desperate, But anyway, where did I got to? Yes, I got to the point where I was quite popular. Where was this leading? My brain has gone. Edit. No, that was it. Thank you. Yeah. And a couple of years ago, I needed some new photos done. I put it off for as long as I can. As long as I can. And I was trying to find a photographer who was still on film, and I found this woman, and there was a photographer who was suddenly a very, very... everybody goes in cycles, and this poor woman is very popular, and she takes rather glammy photographs. I thought, oh, well, just this once. Let's give it a go. So it said, please email this address when you want your photographs done. So I emailed the address. To which I get the reply, are you the Lisa Bowerman that takes photographs? Harmless enough question. I said, yes, I am. Right. Got this email back saying, I'm terribly sorry, I can't take your photographs. It's a clash of interests. Okay, what? What am I going to do? Nick your camera? No, I don't. I've been an actor for almost 30 years, and there comes a point where I'm not going to sit there going, I don't think you should do it like that. I'm not going to do that. I just want, if I like your photo, exactly,
It's not industrial.
She just said, it has happened in the past where I've taken photographs of somebody who was also a photographer, and we agreed that it was a conflict of interest. I couldn't see that at all. So anyway, I had to abandon that because she refused. Then I rang another photographer who equally had, thank you. Yes, that's what I thought of her. Absolutely. Anyway. So I then rang another photographer who was a bit bonkers, but she's a rather good photographer. And I said, hello, my name is... She goes, and she's a slightly eccentric French lady. She goes, do you take photographs? And I went... Yes, he said, and I thought, oh God, here we go again. So I spent an hour and a half on this phone to her saying, I'm not going to nick your technique. I'm not going to tell you how to take photographs. I'm just an athlete. Can you
just take my picture, please?
Yes, I was getting desperate by that point,
Do you think when you call up a photographer, that would be a straightforward thing to sort out?
Exactly. So anyway, then I went to her, and at the end of the day, she goes, "Oh, it was much easier to take photographs of you than I thought." You go, "What did you think I was going to do?"
You don't want to do it like that, love. That kind of.
That was what they were expecting. So there's an irony there, but however successful you are, I was hit quite badly by the digital market. I have to say, when it first came out, I've spent years avoiding digital photography only because the vast majority of photography for Spotlight is black and white, and black and white film is very good. It was always very. It's quite a long process and it's quite demanding. But I had by that point a printer anyway who was doing all my work. And it was fine, but then because digital stuff was coming so quickly and people wanted things on demand, or they wanted colour, or they wanted this and that, and I thought, and last year I did go digital. The technology has come on enormously since it first started. It's still not, black and white is still not perfect. I know what I'm doing with Photoshop.
You've still not quite got the degrees of latitude.
No, not in black and white. No, you don't. And also colour rendition is very, very tricky on some things.
You've got 100 years of history versus 10 years of history.
Yes, exactly. And it has improved. Oh my God, I do have Photoshop, and I know what I'm doing with Photoshop, so I can tweak it enough to make it look. And because sadly people's visual vocabulary has changed. I took some photographs of a quite well-known actress recently, and they wanted to use one on the front cover of a sort of monthly magazine, and they said, "Oh, it's out of focus." And I said, "No, it's not out of focus. It's grainy, and it's just that they're not used to it." And they said, "We can't do it." And I did this huge scan, very, very high, resolution, and they just they didn't like it. So I thought, if I'm losing my work now because of this, I've got to just move on and say. That's that. But then, of course, in a sense, it was quite useful that I did go out of favour for a while because people did forget that I was a performer. That that's what I did. And it's very, as we said earlier on, in this country, if you do more than one thing, people think, well, you can't be very good at any of them.
Jack of all trades,
master of none. Exactly. So, but by then, actually, I'd started directing for Big Finish. So, in a way, one of my sisters-in-laws said, read this book called Who Stole My Cheese? And it was about somebody, when you're very successful in one quarter, and then suddenly everybody comes up and overtakes you. So, in a way, you've got to find another cheese to go on to, so you can move on to that one. So in a way, that's what usefully happened at the time.
So, Old Vic Theatre, acting, photography, then directing, but in a different medium. So you started off obviously acting. Obviously, I think the first thing I remember seeing on television, it was a rerun, was on Casualty.
That was my first television.
Really?
It was my very first, 86.
So talk to us about that process of going from being an actor on television or on film and then moving to directing in audio.
Every medium is different. And the problem that I have a big problem with drama training now, is that they've started categorising. Oh, I did 3 years in television, or I did a year's, electronic media course, or acting for stage, or acting. Actually, you are either an actor or you're not. And in order to keep working as an actor, you have to be able to cross genre at any time, whether it be panto one week, and an Ibsen on a radio the next week. That is your versatility. It's a very dirty word, versatility. Nobody knows how to cast you, so you've got to be very, very cautious about these things. And the irony, from my point of view with television, is that on stage I'd done nothing but costume drama. I had a permanent 20s bob for about a year and a half, but I couldn't get arrested for Jeeves and Wooster or House of Eliot because my first telly had been Casualty with long hair and a Bristol accent.
And a lot of soap opera subsequently as well.
Well, yeah, but but actually that's only because that's the way the industry has worked. There wasn't soap opera. I mean, in fact, I quote this back quite often, in terms of the output of what the BBC does when it comes to drama. When we were launched in Casualty, it was the 1986-1987 drama season, and we were launched at BAFTA during the whole of that season. And I found the magazine not long ago that they published to go with it. And they produced so much what we would consider drama in those days. And they had, within a year they'd produced The Life and Loves of the She-Devil, The Monocle Mutineer, The Singing Detective. They had this strand Screen 1, they had Screen 2, they had Screen Play, which was just a kind of small studio-based plays. They had the Theban plays. They had Theatre Night, which was stage plays on television. And one page was taken up because it was the first year of EastEnders. Wow. Now, at some point, somebody thought that wasn't working. Don't ask me who. I have no idea. But now you find it's the other way around. Everything is soap. Most of us jobbing actors will only ever get seen for soaps now. Doctors or EastEnders, but trying to get...
Well, I've done you look them up, and they've played several different parts in Doctors.
In the same... Oh, yes, I've done Doctors twice,
It's just there's a few years, and then you...
But I even went back to Casualty. That was funny. I went in... Oh, this is a few years ago. I went in for the interview. It was a very last-minute piece of audition, and they said... they had my CV in front of them. And I wasn't going to say anything because I needed the job, And I literally, it was that day I found out I got the casting, and it was for a drunk head teacher with a nail in her foot.
A nail in it?
With a nail in your foot. It's very important. And I went in, and they actually said to me, "So, Casualty, are you, aware of Casualty?"
Clearly they didn't have your CV in front of them at the time.
They did. They did. They had my CV in front, and I went,
terrible.
Yes. They said, so you've watched some Casualty?
I've only been in 2 series.
Yes. And I didn't say anything. I read the part, because it might have precluded me getting the choice. So anyway, I read the part, and I was literally in a traffic jam on the M25 on the way back, and I got a phone call saying, yes, you got the job, so I thought, fine. And it's weird, because when I did it, it was 10 episodes, and the second episode was 12 episodes.
Mm.
And it was very different. We had rehearsals. The R word, my God, we had rehearsals, And I went in and did it, and it's a very, very different ball game now. I mean, it's a bit like doing Doctors. It's kick, roll, and scramble, like that.
I've just noticed you'll be on stage in the next few minutes.
Will I?
Unfortunately,
sorry.
There's so many more questions. I wanted to cover Big Finish.
Oh yeah, Big Finish.
And I wanted to cover all sorts of things, including Chick Stick Downloads. But I've just noticed, and I've just been waved at from the door, saying that you'll be on stage in about 3 minutes. Now you're just going to wear yourself out, talking and talking. So very sorry.
Well, that's okay.
And thank you very, very much for talking.
Enjoy it. Nice to have you. Sorry if I dabbled on with it. So much to talk about. Big Finish. They're very good. Yes. Thanks very much.
You've been listening to the Tin Dog Podcast. Doctor Who and its connected properties are copyright and trademark of the BBC. No infringement is intended. To contact the show, email tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk. Whostrology, a Time Traveller's Almanac, is available through Telos Publishing or Amazon. Visit www.whostrology.com for further information. The Tin Dog Podcast is a founder member of the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance.